there's a process, as I told you guys yesterday. There's no doubt that we need to add people to the content department. We all know that. But as I said yesterday, I'm not so concerned about, at this point, I'm not so concerned about the skill set.
Yeah.
Because we can teach that. I'm more concerned about the culture fit. Because when you force things, and I did try to do that over the past year, it fucking never works. You know, there's an acronym, there's a book that Ken Blanchard wrote with Don Shula eons ago called Coach. And the COACH. So conviction, when building a team or basically with anything, these are factors that need to be taken into consideration. And sometimes I'll lose sight of that a little bit. But being conviction driven, you know, are they driven for the same purpose? Or if not really for the same purpose, because you can't assume everybody is going to have the exact same purpose or aim as the company. But how do I define this? So if the aim of the company is to live, learn, pass on, to grow the company, you know, all those type of things. People may have different aspirations where this is what they want to do, but then what they really want to do is here. Okay. And maybe that does stay in line with the company, or maybe at some point it's going to break off and be something different than the company. But during that time, that conviction driven line, that linear line, that growth line has to be going in that same direction, no matter where that person's end goal is, which they're never going to tell you in their mind, that's where that is. As long as it's on that you want it on that same path, that's being the same aim, right? I think some people will look at, when they bring people into an organization or a company, that end thing is their thing, and don't realize that maybe this is, if you're bringing somebody in that's just out of school, this is just to get the experience for a few years for them to move on to what they really want to do. Right. So that line's still the same, right, on how that works. It's just their end objective is going to be different than your end objective, but the values are the same. The conviction-driven part is the same. So that's a big part of the second part of that is the O, which is over-learning. So you guys I drive you guys crazy. I put things over your head all the time. Which forces that over-learning to have to take place. Because if all you do is learn what you need to do the job at hand, you're only going to be good for that day, that week, that month. Got to be in a state of that over-learning, as well as everybody. It needs to be in there, but it needs to be managed. You can't throw too much, because then it's like, fuck, I'm out of here. This is bullshit. But it has to be, you know, a stretch goal with what that is. And then under the O for the over-learning, there's audible ready. I mean, I'm ripping this off of my head from 15 years ago. This is how ingrained this is part of my everyday thinking. The audible ready I've talked about a lot in training, because after that first exercise, what are you going to do? You know, when we talk about training later, we'll get into this. That first exercise determines what happens in the second exercise. The sail isn't work. What's the pivot going to be? Are you audible ready? So that has to be built. You can say, well, it needs to be built into the system, but you don't know how it's going to break. Right. So you have to have people that understand and become audible ready. So like going into any circumstance, knowing this probably isn't going to work. 90% of the things don't. So let's be ready for when it doesn't work to be able to happen that way. And then there's, what was it? Was C, the convention driven, over-learning, audible ready, consistency. And then I don't want to harp on this one a whole lot. You have to consistently do the thing to become better at the thing. That's it. You know, so if it's in front of a video camera, you got to consistently be in front of the video camera. If it's analyzing the numbers, you got to consistently be, if it's placing ads, you need to consistently be placing the ads, and consistently be using the same thing over and over again. So if it's, we'll fall back to the social media. If it's Instagram, you know, are you using Instagram, or are you using Hootsuite? Because Hootsuite's going to take you away from the Instagram, so you're not consistently using the Instagram to see what the new features are, to see what the new, you know, to keep up with what's actually going on. Now, am I telling you not to use Hootsuite? By all means, no, not at all, because there's a lot of general shit that can be put through there. But if you're not consistently on that platform, you don't know what the platform can do.
Right.
And then what happens is a year goes by and you're like, fuck, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, look at that.
Man, and then somebody else is like, the hell, I just saw this with something on Facebook. Somebody else is like, yeah, fuck, they've been doing that for 2 years. Like, fuck. You know, I haven't been consistently doing this aspect. So what else? Then at that point, it's like, fuck, what else did I miss? Then it goes to that over learning, because if I miss something as simple as that, then holy fuck, I missed a lot of big things. Then COACH and then honesty based.
Yep.
You know, and that's just a given there too. You can't bullshit people. You can't bullshit staff. You got to be honest with them. And that's not easy for some people because either they want to maintain this false status of I'm here, you're here, which is actually kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And so forth. But again, all these apply to training. I can go through that same acronym again and say, this is how I use that with my own training. This is how I've used it with helping other people training. They're all universal principles that kind of relate back and forth. Like we talked about on the last podcast, is when you can start to link how this relates to this, and they're both important aspects of your life. Or they're important aspects of somebody else's life. So I can take these things where this has been more or less a business conversation. I could take all these same principles, take all the business accolades, all the business stories out, replace them with training stories, and still put out the same principles for people to relate to. When you can relate those principles, say life principles, whatever you want to call them, to something else, that opens, when we were talking about communication before with the people you're speaking to, that opens your door to a whole nother world of people that you can be able to help, influence, pass on, and get better, because they won't understand. This is what a customer thinks. This is how this relates to, you know, a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, but they can understand this is how it relates to your 3-rep max, your 1-rep max, your conditioning, and so forth.